Hi, in this video we are going to take a look at how we are currently using JUnit 5 assertions, and then we are going to take a look at Assertj library, and we are going to learn how to use Assertj assertions. So first here, if you take a look at our JUnit 5 maven sample, we have a person service test in which we are asserting person ID is not null and name is equals to something and email is equals to something using assert equals. So similar to that, JUnit 5 assertions provides a wide range of assertions to ensure assert true, assert false, things like that. Kind of these are okay for comparing some expected value with actual value and things like that, but it is kind of a very primitive in my opinion. Now if we take a look at Assertj library, so first we are going to add this Assertj core dependency, and at the time of recording 3.24.2 is the latest version, so I have added this as a test dependency. And now if we take a look at there is another sample JUnit 5 Assertj sample application in which we have person service test. Here we are going to import this Assertj core API assertions, and there is assert that method which we are importing statically. So while using Assertj assertions, all you need to start with is this assert that. Unlike JUnit 5 assertions, you need to probably remember assert equals, assert not null, and other names as well, method names. But here with Assertj, all you need to remember is assert that. Any of your assertions will simply start with assert that. So assert that, and you include whatever the primary object you want to assert on, and then there will be a lot of assertions methods available based on the type of the object here. So right now we are asserting person ID should not be null, and also we are asserting get name is equals to Siva, and person get email is equals to siva@gmail, and also we are able to chain another assertion that is ends with @gmail.com. So similarly we can assert multiple assertions on the same subject with assert that. Okay, it is handy, but if that is all Assertj is providing, it's not really a big deal. But now let us see what is the real benefit of using Assertj library. So here we have name of type string and we have int age. So here when I use assert that of name, and it is going to provide the further assertion methods based on the type of object we are using here. So here we are using string type, that's why we are able to see a lot of string related assertions, like we may want to check with string contains some substring, or string starts with some string, or it can be equals to some expected string. So kind of you can see a string related assertions, whereas while using integer type, you can see it is providing integer related assertions. Usually we compare an integer should be equals to so and so value, or it can be greater than so and so value. So all related to integer type data type assertions. So this is pretty cool. You don't need to remember a lot of methods or anything like that. You always start with assert that, and based on the data type it is going to give a auto completion of whatever is applicable for this type of object, which is really handy. And to verify, let us say if we use assert that of age and try to use starts with, no, it doesn't provide that method on the integer type. So this is the benefit of using Assertj library assertions. Next, let us take a look at how we can assert an exceptional scenario, like you are calling a method and you are expecting it to throw an exception. So let us take a look at how we can handle such scenario using JUnit 5, and also let us take a look at how we can assert that using Assertj library. So here we are creating a random email ID, and then we are trying to create a person with that email. The first create call will succeed, and then next we are going to call again creating a new person with the same email, and we are expecting it to throw runtime exception because it's a duplicate email which is not acceptable. So in such case, usually using JUnit 5, this is how we can handle. We can use assert throws and specify what kind of exception you are expecting by calling this method, and then you can assign it to the exception type here, and later you can assert on what is the message you are expecting from that exception and all that. So this is how usually you assert an exceptional scenario. So similarly, Assertj also provides assert that thrown by, and then you provide a lambda which is going to call a method, and internally it will throw an exception. And here again we have a fluent assertions. So here you can specify what is the type of exception you are expecting and what is the type of error message you are expecting and things like that. You can even check for what is the substring you are expecting in the exception message and things like that. Let us take a look at some more features of Assertj. So here we have person 1, person 2 and person 3. And if you notice, person 1 and person 3 has the same data. So let's say we want to compare person 1 and person 3, and we want to compare each field value. So here, instead of we extracting each property and then using equal to, what we can do, assert that person 1 using recursive comparison is equal to person 3. So what Assertj is going to do, to compare each of the property in person 1 object to person 3 object, so that you don't have to extract each field and then compare with the other objects field. It's going to do internally, and the good thing is, even if there is any nested objects inside person, it's going to compare each of those nested properties as well. Okay, and then let's say we have two different objects here, person 4 and person 5. And sometimes you don't want to compare all the fields. You may want to compare only a subset of fields. So in that case, for example, you want to compare two person objects, but you don't want to compare all the fields and you want to ignore ID, and you want to compare based on name and email. So in such case, what you can do, assert that person 4 using recursive comparison, ignoring fields ID. So we are saying use all the fields except ID for comparison and check whether it is equals to person 5 or not. And sometimes we have to do the opposite, like assert that person 4 using recursive comparison. Instead of ignoring, we are explicitly saying what fields to use to comparison. So here we are using comparing only fields name and email, and is equals to person 5. So here Assertj is going to take only name and email to compare with person 5 object values. So like this, it will be really easy to compare two different objects instead of we explicitly writing code to get name and then compare to some value, something like that. Assertj also helps in working with collections. Let's say here we have a list of persons, and we take list of person 1, 2 and 4, and then we have another person object which is having the same person 2 ID and values. So now we want to compare whether person list contains person 2 object or not. So if you run this test right now, it's going to fail because person 2 is different from person. Though the values are same, they are two different objects. So by default, it's going to compare using equals and hash code, and it is going to fail because we have not implemented equals and hash code. So let's go to person class and then implement equals and hash code method. And here we are using only ID property for comparison. And then if you now execute the same test, it's going to pass because internally it's going to use equals and hash code and then assert this person list contains this person object because this person ID is 2 and our person 2 ID is also 2. So it is successful right now. But sometimes we don't want to rely on equals and hash code, and we want to do by comparison. So what we can do, we can use the same pattern like earlier. We can use assert that this person object using recursive comparison, comparing only fields ID is in this list. Okay, so here it's going to check whether this person object is in the list or not using only this specified fields. So this way you don't need to implement equals and hash code or rely upon implementation of that. Okay, this is really handy when you are getting a collection of objects from a API call, and then you want to assert so and so object is there in the collection or not. I just showed you a small set of commonly used Assertj assertions, but there are a lot more than that. I would strongly recommend you to go to Assertj documentation, and here we can see plenty of examples, and then there are a lot more features than I just described. So I highly encourage you to go and check out the Assertj documentation. I hope this video is useful, and stay tuned for the upcoming videos.